That's correct.
Good morning. I am Ralph Perk Jr., the current and only the third president of the American Nationalities Movement of Ohio. I've been preceded by my father, now deceased, Ralph Perk, the former mayor of Cleveland, and most recently by the great ethnic leader, Irene Morrow. Every year for over 60 years, the American Nationalities Movement of Ohio has commemorated the third week of July as Captive Nations Week. We have done so through our annual Captive Nations Dinner, honoring members of our community who have fought for freedom for the people of our heritage, or their heritage, and or supported the continuation of the customs and history of this, their new country, the United States of America. This year, with government restrictions in place for large gatherings due to the COVID-19 pandemic, we found it problematic to hold our annual regular dinner event, which usually hosts up to 200 members and or friends of our organization. Instead, we are honoring Captive Nations Week by gathering a small group to read this year's presidential proclamation honoring Captive Nations Week. Back in 1959, Congressman Charles Vanek, along with U.S. Senator from Ohio, Frank Lausche, urged then Cleveland City Councilman Ralph Perk, our founder, to organize a group of ethnic leaders into a force that could assist their efforts to pass a bill in Congress outlining the plight of the people caught behind the Iron Curtain in countries designated as captive nations. At that time, there were satellite countries under the thumb of the USSR, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, now known as Russia. And from there, the American Nationalities Movement emerged as an organization to give voice to people within those countries and to amplify the individual voices of each nationality through a larger organization, the American Nationalities Movement, comprised of representatives from over 40 nationalities in Northeast Ohio. Little did any leader or member know in the early days of their organization that their cause would be successful within their lifetime with the fall of the Berlin Wall and the reunification of East and West Germany in November of 1989, and the official vote to disband the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, the USSR, on December 26, 1991. All over the free world and within the captive nations, the people were celebrating their regained freedom, lost for over 40 years. Now the presidential proclamation, this year's presidential proclamation, issued on July 17, 2020. Tragically, hundreds of millions of people around the world continue to suffer under repressive regimes. During Captive Nations Week, we condemn the cold grip of tyranny that holds nations under unjust rule, and we reaffirm our commitment to all who are fighting to overcome oppression. We renew our deep devotion to the principles of liberty, justice, and the rule of law, and we know the United States will continue to shine as an unparalleled example for all nations. President Dwight D. Eisenhower first proclaimed Captive Nations Week in 1959 to declare our nation's steadfast support for people throughout the world who are denied fundamental rights by their government. The belief that a just government's power are derived from the consent of the governed is sacrosanct in our country, but it is not shared universally. In many countries, citizens who peacefully speak their views, practice their religion, or strive to hold their governments accountable for abuses, experience reckless disregard for their rights. Recently, authoritarian regimes have used the coronavirus pandemic to justify increased restrictions on individual human rights. These regimes have suppressed the free flow of timely and accurate information about the pandemic by censoring or imprisoning people who dare to share unapproved information or opinions. The most notable example today is China, where the virus originated and government suppression led directly to the global pandemic. In addition, the Chinese government has seized upon the opportunity to snuff out freedom for Hong Kong, which has been the only bastion of liberty in that captive nation. The United States encourages all nations to respect individual liberty, uphold the rule of law, and be accountable to their people through consent-based governments. Authoritarian regimes that do not respect the inherent dignity of every individual hold the dreams and potential of their people captive, enabling poverty, recession, repression, and anguish to flourish as they deny their people their God-given rights. We will never waver in our firm belief that liberty, justice, and the rule of law unleash the fullness of life that God intended for everyone. This week and always, we stand with all people who yearn to live freely, securely, and prosperously under rights-respecting, transparent, and accountable governments, rooted in the consent of the people. The Congress, by joint resolution approved July 17, 1959, has authorized the request of the President to issue a proclamation designating the third week of July of each year as Captive Nations Week. Now, therefore, I, Donald J. Trump, President of the United States of America, by virtue of this authority vested me by the Constitution and the laws of the United States, hereby proclaim July 19th through July 25th, 2020 as Captive Nations Week. I call upon all Americans to reaffirm our commitment to supporting those around the world striving for liberty, justice, and the rule of law. In witness thereof, I have entered to set my hand, 17th day of July, in the year of our Lord, 2020, and of the independence of the United States of America, the 245th, Donald J. Trump. That's the resolution. This week, above all, we remember that freedom is easily lost to a tyrannical government when we, the people, become complacent and fail to keep the power of our leaders in check. Freedom can be lost incrementally as well by giving too much authority to those we elect. As a not yet happening but plausible example, first, a certain kind of speech is frowned upon, then it is forbidden, then it is unlawful, then another kind, and so on until freedom of speech is only what the government says it is. That chipping away of our rights could also include eroding our freedom of religion or our right to peaceably assemble, as well as each right retained by the people enlisted in our Constitutional Bill of Rights, a section of our Constitution that limits the power of government. That cannot happen if we remain vigilant. These are among the rights that helped the creative power of the people in America to make it the freest, most prosperous country in the world. Value your rights. They're given to each of us by God and nature, not by man and government. But if we are not vigilant, government will attempt to reduce or eliminate your natural God-given rights. Therefore, stay awake, stay aware, and today, stay safe. Thank you for listening, and may God bless our nation and every one of us. Have a nice rest of the day. I want to thank those for coming. We, of course, limited the number as much as possible to some who are interested and who are leaders in the organization. If anyone now wants to add any words, this will be the appropriate time.